Hi, and welcome to the Mint Rain Knits podcast. My name is Caitlin, and I am the host. Today is January 23rd, and this is the 6th episode. I have quite a bit that I have done in the past week and a half since I last recorded. A lot of it was done on my Addy knitting machine, so a lot of it didn't take that long, but it's helping to use up some yarn. But first, what I am wearing is my Humulus sweater by Isabel Kramer that I knit out of my hand-dyed yarn in the sweater worsted base in the colorways Lake Superior and Copper Harbor. I love this sweater. It is so comfortable and very easy to wear, and it just is, I think it is my favorite hand knit sweater so far. Okay, so some of the things that I finished. I'll try to go in, I think I'll go in order. These in order that I actually did finish them. So I cranked some charity hats. There's 5 of them. Most of them were out of some scraps that I had just from leftover projects that were way too much to throw away. So this is actually this one is Dream in Color Classy. It was one of their monthly colorways. I can't remember what it was, but it was left over from a cowl. Actually, the inside is some Malabrigo Rios, and I have no idea what colorway this is. It was left over from a sweater that I knit years ago, and this is the same one from the inside of the previous hat, and then there's a more purple and brown Malabrigo Rios, which I also am terrible with remembering the names of the Malabrigo colorways. And this one is out of Knit Picks Andes del Campo in the Bordeaux colorway. This is a discontinued yarn. I think I have enough to make one more hat with this. This is out of some brown sheep nature spun. I think it's the brick. And this is some that my sister dyed up. We were back when I first started dyeing yarn, we were seeing how different a different take, that the same dyes can be used by doing with 2 different people using them. So this was, I had some leftover dyes, so she dyed this after I had dyed up some Halloween yarns. But these will all go to charity. There is one organization that I really like to send items to. It's called Wool Aid, where they send wool clothing to children living in poverty in cold climates. So it could be this organization will send them to whatever organizations reach out to them that fit the criteria for this group. So I like to do I do lots of hats for them out of my wool yarns that are leftovers, or just ones that I pick up at a good price that fit their color criteria. This one will not be going to them. This one I will find a different organization to send to. Well, then I had a skein of Lion Brand Scarfie, so I cranked a scarf. It has kind of a harsh color transition here, which I'm not that fond of, but I don't know who this is going to yet, but it will be in a gift pile for when I need a gift. But I was able to get a nice long scarf, and I think I might actually put like pom-poms on the end just to help weigh it down a little bit, but I haven't decided yet. But this was the easiest way to close up the end without putting fringe on, because I'm not a big fan of making fringe. I can do it, but I just don't like it. Then I did a couple of headbands. These are similar to the ones I did on my sock machine. So there's this one, which was the first one I did, and I was having a little bit of trouble with the tension on the Addy knitting machine for some reason. I don't think it really actually will. It doesn't really like the Malabrigo Rios. And then I did this one out of another skein of Rios that I had started a hat with that was just, I started the Tied Knots hat by Justina Larkowska. I love the hat, but I do not like knitting cables, and there's a lot of cables in that hat, and it just wasn't turning out, it wasn't pleasant to knit, so I just ripped it out and had the yarn sitting in a bin, so I decided to crank a headband with it. Then I decided to, every year I try to do the Yarn Hoarder Dishcloth Challenge, which is knit a dishcloth a week throughout the year. Well, I usually peter out around 20 to 30 dishcloths per year, because I have knit a lot of dishcloths throughout my time knitting, and I actually don't have more than maybe a dozen of the ones that I have made myself in the house. They always get given away. But I am trying to make a little stockpile for when my fiance and I move in together. So I have done 5. This was the first one. This is the Grandma's Favorite dishcloth. I just did every alternating garter ridge in the Grape and Overcast with this one. And I like doing the stripes, but I like the way it looks, but I hate weaving in the extra ends for them. And then I did 3 out of the Crazy 8s pattern by, let me look it up quick, Julie Tarsha. This one is a really fun one to do. I was able to get 3 out of 1 ball of the super size ombre skeins, which are I think about 2.5 ounces. You can get them at Joann's in the super size balls, but I got 3 with maybe 2 yards of yarn left over. And then I did 1 out of the Overcast. Oh, and this is the Pebble Beach ombre. Then I did 1 more out of the Overcast. So I'm actually now almost completely out of Overcast. I think I have enough to do like half of one if I alternate with another color for each wedge, which kind of makes it look like a beach ball, and they're kind of neat looking. So then the next thing that I finished is another house thing, is a bath mat. This only took me a couple hours to whip up. I did 3 strands of the sugar and cream cotton held together, so 2 strands of the Overcast and 1 strand of what color is that? It's one of my favorite teal aquas that they do. The sugar and cream does. Let me just look that up quick. I did put it in my project page on Ravelry, and I made up the pattern and I put it in the notes. Sea Breeze is the aqua. But I did a crocheted linen stitch, which is a single crochet, chain 1, and then but you skip every other stitch and on the first row, and then on every subsequent row you just single crochet into that chain 1 gap you made. But it makes a nice absorbent bath mat, and it is actually one of my favorites. I have one in my bathroom right now and I absolutely love it. I've been using it for several years now. Then I also finished 2 crocheted trivets last night. This is I held 3 strands of the Knit Picks Cotton together, and I used an L hook, which is 8mm, and I used the colorways lilac, sagebrush, and cashew. So I have 2 trivets, and then I've got 1 coaster done so far, which is actually, I just did this same pattern I was working on, and I just made up this pattern. I started with 10 double crochets in the center and then did an even increase out each row, and I stopped at 6 rows. And this one I just stopped at 3 rounds, but I'm planning to get probably, I want to get like 6 of these done, but I have 1 done so far. That is all of my finished items, which is quite a lot. So my works in progress. So my first work in progress, I have a sock done. I have not started the second one yet, and this is my new sock pattern that will be releasing next Saturday on the 1st, the birthday sock. So I was right here last week, so you can kind of see the texture pattern. And I know the second one will go very quickly because all you have to do is count the pattern repeats. It's very similar to how with self-striping, how you can just count the stripes to see how close you are to finishing. But so, and I want to knit a solid version of this for the pattern still, so that you can get a really good look at how the texture pattern looks. So the next thing I've been working on is a baby shower present for a friend of mine. And I have been working on a granny square blanket. I actually have all of the centers done. So I have all these that still need to be joined. These are out of Knit Picks Brava in the worsted. And I got one of the rainbow mini skein pack where you get 25 different 25 gram minis, and each mini was the perfect size to do 1 square. So I am using, to join them, the Bravo worsted again in the silver. So it will take, I'm on the second ball of the silver, and that will definitely finish the rest of the squares, because I just got into that and I only have 9 left to add. I think, wait, 1, 2, 3. Yep, and I have 9 left to add in. And I have all the ends to weave in still, but this will be a fun little blanket because it has all the colors. It'll be great for laying on the floor to put the baby on, because since it's acrylic, it'll be very, very washable. And the last thing I've been working on is a very old whip that I pulled out that I have not touched in well over a year. And this is my Find Your Fade. And I started this back in January of 2017. And I have been working on it so long, I don't even remember all the yarns that I used. I do know that this one is from my friend Dana of Ice Melon Stash. This is the one of her supernatural colorways called "Oh Crap, I'm a Painted Whore." And it's on her the Sparkle. And this is my colorway Night Bus on my tweed base, which I don't carry very often. Then this one I know is Hue Loco, but I do not remember the colorway name. And this one is a Homespun House, and again I don't remember the colorway name. And this one that I'm working with, I actually have the tag still in the bag since I'm still working with the yarn. It's Marigold Jen in Celebrate Knit Love on her MCN base. So I'm using a whole bunch of different bases on here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 different bases in this so far. I have not fussed with having to have the same base throughout a project because I do like the difference in the textures. But I did realize last night when I was working on this lace section, I was wondering why it looked so different from the other lace sections. I'm doing it wrong. I'm not going to rip it out. I'm just going to finish it the way that I've been doing it in this section. I realized I was just doing a basic eyelet with the knit 2 yarn over. It's not quite the pattern, but oh well, it won't really be noticeable once it's all blocked. I'll just block out the other lace sections a little bit bigger so they match. But I really want to get this off the needles. And the main reason why I haven't worked on it in so long is the last year and a half or so, I've just not really wanted to work on shawls, so all of my shawls that I was working on just kind of went by the wayside. So it will be nice to have that done, because I do want some new shawls added to my wardrobe since I wear them almost every day when I'm working. Actually, just all the time. So that's all I've been. That's all I've been working. It's a lot that I've been working on. But I have not done any reading this week. I have listened to a couple books. I listened to Stephanie Pearl-McPhee's Casts Off. And I started listening to her book, Nitwit. Nitwit? Yeah. That, I love listening to both of those. They're fairly short. I think they're about just over 3 hours for each one. And they're really funny. And Stephanie Pearl-McPhee actually reads them too. So they are very enjoyable while I'm working. But I have not actually read anything new, because I've listened to both these books multiple times. It's just been busy. So I'm trying out a new background, just trying to get some better lighting without the harsh outdoor glare that my office often has. So behind me is my granny stripe blanket. Didn't work on it at all in the past week or so. This is a scrappy granny square blanket that I made a couple years ago, and I gave it to my mom for Mother's Day, I think. And then this is my Typhoon shawl out of my hand-dyed yarns. In the solid, semi-solid green is Scottish Highlands, and the self-striping is Farmer's Market. That one of my amazing sample knitters knit for me for shows, but since I have retired the Farmer's Market colorway, I can now wear this and not have to worry about keeping it pristine for shows anymore. But yeah, and I have found that I absolutely love how this one wears. It's so drapey and just perfect. Well, I think that is it for this week. I know I probably talked fast, so I'm sorry if that bothered anyone, but I had a lot of the same types of items, so it was pretty quick to go through. And a lot of crochet. I've been crocheting a lot these past few weeks. It is a nice way to go through some yarn quickly, and I find that it's very nice for like home wear type things, like the coasters and the trivets and the bath mat. So it just is something that I'm drawn to, I think, a lot during the winter when you're in the house a lot and you're just thinking about the things that you can make for your home. Oh, one thing I wanted to show that I just remembered is I am actually not very good about keeping my projects up to date on Ravelry. I'm trying to be better since I have the podcast, and it's easier to link the projects that way. But normally what I do is I keep a knitting journal where I just keep a list of like all the things I've finished. And then like I have for the dishcloth challenge, I keep track that way. And then I also I keep track of the yarn going out of my stash and coming into my stash. My goal is always to have twice as much yarn going out as coming in as a minimum rule. So far this year I've only added 3 skeins of yarn to my stash, and 2 of those skeins have already been used up. But I have a lot of yarn, and I am hoping to go through and use up as much of it as I can before I move, so that I have less to move. But I wanted to show how I keep track of my projects. So with my projects, I put the project name, the yarn, the pattern, needle, and then when I started and finished it, and then any notes. So that way, if I put a project down for a long period of time, I can go back to whichever, so I do a different journal for every year. So I can go back to whichever year I started that project in and look up, say, the size I was casting on if I didn't make a note on the pattern, which I try to make notes on the pattern, but I don't always. What yarn I was using, what needle I was using, just all the pertinent information for when I go back to the project and need to remember something that perhaps I did not put in Ravelry, or I didn't even put it in the project at all in Ravelry. Because a lot of times I will start projects, work on them like crazy for a day or two, and then abandon them for a long time. And then I will find them. And the reason I abandon a lot of projects like that is often my customers will want to know how a particular colorway knits up. And so I'll start a project so you can see what the colorway will look like knit. But I usually will have other projects going that I'm more interested in. So I will start something and then get it as far as I need to for a quick picture, and then quickly abandon it. And then I have to go through and decide if I want to keep those projects or frog them, and probably 75 to 80% of the time they get frogged, and then the yarn goes into something else. But These knitting journals have been a lifesaver for keeping track of all of my knitting. I've been keeping a knitting journal since 2013, and I haven't done it yet this year for this one, but often I will also put the ball bands from the project with the project page in here. That way I can keep track that way, and if there's any, I have the care instructions too for that yarn. If there's any particular care instructions. And then I haven't yet this year, but in the back of my journals, what I do is I will put business cards that I pick up throughout the year, and any little notes I get from doing swaps or from customers. It's just a nice little memento, so I have all that stuff in one place. So, and this one I just picked up this journal at Barnes & Noble. It is one of the dot graph journals designed for doing bullet journals, but I don't do bullet journals. I've tried, and it's just not for me. I am better with a traditional planner if I am for keeping track of everything, so I can see like a month at a glance. But I think that is everything for this week. I hope you are all well, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Thanks. Bye.